Good morning. Good morning. Welcome to the May 6th, 2024 edition of our Deluxe Pre-Market Prep. Reason why it's Deluxe is because we go over the important news for this week, laying out the groundwork for this week that starts on Monday. Each and every week, right? Last week, us being able to successfully navigate all the different earnings, all the different data drops, the Fed speak, right? Powell's press conference, consumer confidence data. The reason why we were able to navigate that also effectively and not blow up accounts is because of the game plan that we established on Monday, right? So establishing this Monday game plan is absolutely paramount to success during the week, and that's what we're doing here today for this session. So welcome to the pre-market prep session. We're going to start with news, from the week ahead and then go into our more Monday specific news. Now, we've still got earnings going on. We've still got companies that we have to keep an eye on, but we're through the thick of it when it comes to the biggest names in the business. And now we're on the descending slope of that. So before we get started, as always, we're here for one reason and one reason only. Kaizen, to get 1% better daily. As long as we're doing that, we can look, at ourselves in the mirror at the end of the day and say, wow, this was a great day. Right? And this whole, this whole movement, that's what it's about. It's not about busting it out every day and curing cancer and stopping war in the Middle East, right? It's 1% better toward whatever your goals are each and every day. So whatever it takes to just not have a, 0 day, that's what we're aiming toward. And you can start that exact thing by being here. Right, being here, getting better daily. Speaking of which, if you haven't already, make sure you're registered. I'm betterdaily.com for the Kaizen event coming up in June. Super pumped for that. Normally we have some type of quarterly live teaching, but I've been busy and trying to be super meaningful, purposeful with my time. And this might be the only one for the first half of the year, maybe the only one for the year, because I'm really focused on executing and learning more and growing more within what I'm teaching there, because it'll be such an important part of the future in every aspect, and is becoming an increasingly important part of the present. So make sure you're in the room for that. And without further ado, we're going to dive into our week ahead news, and then we're going to get to our Monday specific news. So Wall Street will get a slight amount of relief next week as both the economic calendar and the first quarter earnings seasons will lighten up somewhat. Market participants will be looking ahead to Monday's Senior Loan Officer Opinion Survey from the Federal Reserve to assess credit conditions in the economy. Also in focus will be Friday's University of Michigan preliminary consumer sentiment data for May. Now, many major companies, including members of the Magnificent Seven, have already reported their results. Still, this week has a few notable names on tap, including theme park and entertainment giant Disney, which we'll be very interested in. Meat processor Tyson Foods, whose ticker is TSN, and ride-hailing behemoth Uber. Meanwhile, some of the spotlight will be garnered by Apple. The tech major is scheduled to hold a special event on Tuesday to showcase new iPad products and hardware accessories. So Apple kind of deferred some of the excitement toward the upcoming events they have. Maybe they'll have something fun that drops. Historically, when it comes to Apple events, usually Apple drops on the day of the event. There might be some, volatility throughout the day, but for the most part, Apple drops on the day of the event. Does that mean I'm going to be shorting Apple into events? No. I'm just letting you know for my people who are like, oh, Apple's unveiling something new. Like maybe I should grab Apple calls. It's not that simple, right? Having an idea of how things move historically, for certain companies is really important, because things that you assume would be good aren't necessarily good or don't garner the result you would think when it comes to the stock. And it's really not for us to figure out why. Some things it's important to dig and figure out, okay, why? But a lot of times with the markets, it's just about you being able to react to the result. Because, for companies that have amazing earnings and blow things out of the water and then the stock drops, you trying to reason why it drops is just you positing thousands of different hypotheses that you can't verify, right? And what does that mean? You're burning through through mental capital, right? You're burning through brain energy saying, well, why did this happen? We don't know, right? At the end of the day, there's no way, unless you can go through and perform tests, right, where you build these models and then you take variables in and you take them out to figure out which one was the determining factor. Unless you can do that, which we can't, because again, we need an AI that would have a lot more computing power than anyone that we have access to currently, then there's no reason to think about, oh, like, why did that turn out the way that it did, right? It's just, oh, hey, this happened. This is what the reaction was. How do I need to move from here? right? That's always what it has to be, because trying to figure out and game plan for the next time is above our computing power at this point. Um, so yeah, I wouldn't be like, oh, is this why Apple falls when they unveil new products, or this, that, and like it's just burning through mental capital. So I wouldn't advise doing that. More so, just saying, okay, is there something that happens more often than not? I don't know why it does, but I can use that to my advantage. That's how you want to look at things with the stock market and with kind of the movement that can happen as a result of certain events. In terms of earnings news, earnings spotlight on Monday, we've got Tyson Foods, TSN, Vertex Pharmaceuticals, VRTX, Palantir, ticker PLTR, and Realty Income, tickers O. We've also got earnings tomorrow on Disney, McKesson, Ferrari, Global Foundries, whose ticker is GFS, Electronic Arts, Rivian, and Datadog, and then Qpeng, whatever that is. A few names in here that we've traded, right? Over the course of these next 2 days. Palantir, Diz, GFS traded a bit. EA we've traded before. I haven't traded recently. Datadog we traded pretty recently. Earnings spotlight Wednesday, May 8th. Uber reporting. Uber finally got its first quarterly profit ever. I think it was last quarter or within the last 2 quarters. So congrats to Uber. Do I have a feeling about them this quarter? No, I don't really feel one way or the other. Anheuser-Busch InBev, ticker Bud, Airbnb, ticker Airbnb, Shopify, ticker Shop, Arm, ticker ARM, Energy Transfer, ticker ET, and then Trade Desk, TTD, Beyond Meat, BYND, and Affirm, AFRM, and AMC. So a lot of names. They're not Magnificent Seven names, but they are important companies, right? These are important companies that are doing some pretty great things. I haven't looked at Shopify in a while. I'm not much of a trader of Shopify, but I do know they're doing some awesome things on the e-commerce side, and they've always been a great company. So just in terms of great companies, Shopify always knows what they're doing, and they do a great job, and they add great features. So I'm very interested to see how they continue to integrate AI into what they do, because Shopify was already kind of unparalleled when it comes to the user interface and just all of it, the way, especially if you're doing anything where you are actively selling a physical product. Shopify cannot be beat. Programs and platforms like Webflow, I think you can do a lot cooler stuff in terms of web design, but I just think from an execution standpoint, Shopify still on top. Thursday, Warner Bros. Discovery reports, U.S. Foods, ticker USFD, Hyatt Hotels, Roblox, Dropbox, and Genpact. And then Friday, AMC Networks, which is AMCX, and then Enbridge, ENB. So definitely Monday through Wednesday, we got the biggest names reporting. And I feel like the most fun to keep an eye on will be Disney. What will Disney talk about? A number of things. I think that them doing the password sharing crackdown, just like Netflix is doing, is something that is positive to look down the pipeline for Disney. Whether that manifests now in this earnings report is the big thing, right? When did they start it? Will those already start showing in terms of the bottom line? Because that's something that's been great for Netflix, and Disney followed them up, of course. And it's just whether or not that hits now, because a lot of people might be like, I had to make my own Disney account because of this, so Disney should be making more money. But remember, there's a lag with this. It's got to start showing up in the numbers first. Anything else going on volatility watch? IPOs. We never really care about IPOs. Investor events. Notable speakers at the 4-day Milken Institute Global Conference include Pershing Square's Bill Ackman, Tesla's Elon Musk, and SEC Commissioner Mark Ueda. Elon might say some things up there, right? I don't know what it'll be related to. Could be anything. But whenever he's got the chance to speak, typically it makes headlines. New York Federal Reserve Bank President John Williams will also participate in a conversation at the event. He's not Kashkari or Powell, so not really worried about that. Yeah, I'm not. Okay, cool. Not seeing anything else crazy going on here. All right, so let's go ahead then and we can roll to our Monday specific news. All right. So we just covered the week ahead. Let me also pull up, actually, our economic calendar. Make sure we've covered everything there. So Monday, May 6th. We've got a few Fed presidents speaking. Again, none of them crazy ones that could do much when it comes to markets. Tomorrow we do have a crazy one, right? Kashkari, he's back up there at 11:30 a.m. So that is important. That's something that can fly under the radar. It's not Powell, but this guy has moved markets. Typically, he waits to say something crazy and out of pocket, and he does it like once every year and a half. Um, and he already did it this year, but we still got to be aware. Like this dude can get up there and say something crazy, especially because of how dovish the Fed kind of continues to sound. They're just not, Powell's basically saying we're gonna drop at some point this year, and he's really, despite the fact that inflation has been hot for consecutive quarters, he's really like trying to kind of downplay it. So we'll see. Maybe Kashkari will come out and say some other crazy stuff, but I don't think it's something that we haven't already heard from him, but again, I'm just postulating, right? I'm literally just throwing out, oh, well, it could be this or it could be this. We have no idea. At the end of the day, we just got to know this guy speaking could cause something crazy to happen. Factor that into your expectations. It's like the same thing with like, earnings. If you like a stock long term, you have to hold through earnings. It's like, do I have any idea of what will happen from earnings? Absolutely not, right? We could have a great technical setup going into it, and afterward we don't. You just have to factor that into your expectations going into it. So if you would normally get 5 contracts, maybe you get one, right? You just make sure you manage those expectations. It's the same thing tomorrow with Kashkari speaking, right? If you know he's speaking and you want to be out here and maybe day trading, just understand he's going at 11:30, and it doesn't mean you shouldn't day trade, but it should be factored into your assessment, right, of the situation and your expectations and your risk tolerance. You should know if you're in a day trade and something crazy happens and it goes against you. Okay, I knew that this is a possibility because he was speaking, right? Nothing's ever foolproof. It's just they can help you cover your expectations. It's like how there are good and bad days to go to the grocery store. I need to look up which ones because I hate when I get there and they have no produce. But it's like knowing that stuff is really important for your expectations. If I'm going to the grocery store and I'm expecting it to be fully stocked and it's not, I'm pretty mad, right? But then if I, go and I'm expecting nothing to be there and nothing is there, then I understood that, right? I understood that as I was going in, so I'm not as mad. Um, Wednesday, we've got wholesale inventories, Fed Vice Chair Philip Jefferson speaks, Boston Fed President Susan Collins speaks. Really nothing. I mean, 10 a.m. wholesale inventories again. That can cause some short-term volatility. 1 minute chart, pop, drop, that type of thing. But biggest thing thus far is Kashkari tomorrow at 11:30. Thursday, initial jobless claims. Friday, Fed Governor Michelle Bowman. No one cares. Consumer sentiment preliminary. People care about that. We just got the final consumer sentiment numbers for last month on last week, but much lighter this week than last week. The only thing that I'm really paying much attention to is what Kashkari has to say tomorrow at 11:30 a.m. Everything else is not really super notable. Last week was just crazy. It was Powell, it was this, it was that every other day. Crazy, crazy, crazy week. So it's nice to kind of be off high alert and not have such a wild week in front of us where we got Apple reporting and all this other stuff going on. Let's get into our Monday specific news. Top news, the final frontier. So after the space shuttle program was retired in 2011, NASA turned to private companies for space station deliveries. SpaceX began supply runs over a decade ago before launching its first astronauts in 2020 and ending NASA's reliance on Russian spacecraft. It also beat Boeing in the race to space under NASA's Commercial Crew Program after the U.S. aerospace giant, whose resume goes back to the Apollo moon missions, ran into issues and delays during the flight testing and manufacturing. Yeah, if Boeing can't even master the flight within Earth's atmosphere, I wouldn't really challenge them to try and master it outside of it. They got some stuff to deal with. Out of This World Commercial Crew was structured as a multi-tiered competition to get private sector companies to produce the cost-effective, innovative, and safe way to get to the International Space Station. While SpaceX, ticker Space, has already sent 9 manned missions to the ISS with its Crew Dragon capsule, Boeing's Starliner is finally arriving to the launch pad. There's a lot on the line for the company, who has incurred $1.4 billion in accounting losses for the program, as well as recent reputation problems ranging from crashes of its MAX jets to a door plug that blew out mid-flight. Starliner is set to blast off on Monday at 10:34 p.m. ET. That'll be fun, right, for Boeing. If it's a successful launch, you expect the stock to go up. If it's unsuccessful, you expect it to drop. With astronauts Barry Wilmore and Sunita Williams on board. The vehicle will launch from Cape Canaveral via an Atlas V rocket built by United Launch Alliance, a joint venture between Boeing and Lockheed Martin, which will take 26 hours to reach the space station. Starliner will return the pair to Earth about a week after docking with ISS, landing in the American Southwest with giant parachutes in comparison to the iconic water splashdowns of SpaceX's Crew Dragon capsule. Investing Sphere with another 6.5 billion invested in Q1. There's now been 286 billion of equity investment into 1,779 unique space companies since 2015. Space Capital founder Chad Anderson wrote in the latest Space Investment Quarterly. The total investment in satellite infrastructure over the last decade overtook launch for the first time in Q1, signaling that the balance had shifted or has shifted from getting things into orbit to developing capabilities now that we're there. Geospatial intelligence also took over satellite communications for the first time, highlighting the growing demand for these orbital assets. Yeah, you had Russia saying that, it needed satellites over the US, and we've got Tesla and Elon and SpaceX and what is the internet company that he has? You guys know what I'm talking about. Starlink, right? We've got Starlink launching up all these satellites. So I mean, it's now just a race to see who can throw the most satellites up into space. Some for defense purposes, some for purposes to better the world. um, some people think that both are involved, right? Depending on what nation and what flag you fly. In terms of financials, Woodstock of capitalism. But again, with Tesla, I mean, SpaceX having that monopoly that it does on space travel up until this point, that's one of the reasons too why it's like Elon's never going to fully fail. When you are a person that's on top of, one of the most important things to us over the course of the next 100 years, 1,000 years, right? Um, you're going to be valuable. So whether or not it causes some positivity for Tesla short term, I don't think that matters. It's always been faith in him and faith in him as a person. So that's why I don't think they'll ever crash and burn. Financials, Woodstock of capitalism. Warren Buffett wants his expected successor, Greg Abel, to take over stock investing decisions if he were to step down. Quote, he understands businesses extremely well. And if you understand businesses, you understand common stocks, the Oracle of Omaha said at Berkshire Hathaway's annual shareholder meeting. The statement came after the conglomerate posted a 39% jump in its Q1 operating profit, along with a cash pile that hit a record, oh my, a record $189 billion. Sheesh. Despite a major state cut, Apple is expected to remain Berkshire's largest holding in 2024, though Elon Musk is trying to get Tesla in on the action. Yeah, so he did a significant cut to his Apple stake, but still their largest holding. I mean, as of right now, Buffett, I mean, they're holding a lot of cash, 189 billion. I mean, holding 200 billion cash is crazy. But yeah, still involved with Apple, and we also know another one that he's involved with, Occidental Petroleum. Consumer news, recovery plan, and also Oxy being a big part of those that 39% jump in Q1 operating profit. Consumer news, recovery plan, trouble at Starbucks, ticker SBUX, has prompted former Starbucks chief Howard Schultz to weigh in on the situation. Him and what's his name, Bob Iger, at Disney cannot get away. I believe it's Iger. Like, somebody correct me if I'm wrong, but those are the two CEOs that cannot get away. Like, they have been trying to retire for years and years and years, and they just cannot get away from their companies. There's too many problems, and they're the only ones that I feel like have the credibility and the trust and the leadership aspect to push them through, and they keep leaving and then coming back. So it seems like he's just weighing in here, but he says, I've emphasized that the company's fix needs to begin at home. U.S. operations are the primary reason for the company's fall from grace, he wrote on LinkedIn, adding that the coffee giant needs to refocus on the customer experience after Q2 earnings significantly missed expectations. Starbucks has declined 17% since then after slashing its guidance. Seeking Alpha analyst Luca Sochi has sold his Starbucks position, but the dividend collector believes the bad news is a buying opportunity. Also, I love how whenever I, have a Zoom or a stream, there are 1,000 emergencies, and we got sirens in the background. In terms of Starbucks, haven't traded it in a bit. Used to trade Starbucks a lot more. I agree that they need to focus more on like their customer experience and things like that because there's just kind of this disconnect, and I think they've just grown super accustomed to being what they are and not evolving. And you've got to evolve, so they've got to do something different. And continue to provide that Starbucks feel that makes people return to Starbucks because now you've got so much happening on the food front, right? There's so many different there's been such a crazy development with the different types of food and what you can get done, and also the offerings that these different companies are bringing. And like you can get great drinks at a lot of different places now. So Starbucks has to continue to innovate and differentiate because you still do have that, that amount of people that are always going to go to Starbucks. But I think that consumer consumer purchasing habits have changed drastically. I think that in the early 2000s, it was much more about like name brand, and now it's much more about like smaller brands. People like going to farmers markets to get groceries over going to big grocery stores. People like going to local coffee shops, small artisanal type vendors instead of like the big names. So that's just kind of how things have gone. Like it used to be cool to everybody wear the same brands. And I feel like now it's cooler for you to go out, find something you love, and it's like smaller and more local to you and means more. And I think that's something that could be hurting Starbucks as well. But I didn't dive deep into their earnings report. So that's all just me throwing around hypotheses. In terms of outlook earnings estimates, the Magnificent Seven contributes about 1/5 of the earnings growth of the S&P 500, and analysts are ramping up expectations. According to Citi strategist Scott Kroner, those stocks, Apple, Amazon, Alphabet, Meta, Microsoft, Nvidia, and Tesla, have seen Q1 earnings estimates rise more than 29%. Nvidia has yet to report Q1. What about the other 493? Kroner says full year earnings growth has become slightly less negative amid stabilization. Yeah, sure. Like earnings estimates, I just I don't really care too much about them. I've seen Q1 estimates rise more than 29%. Yeah, we expect a lot out of these companies, and these companies are the ones that hold up the S&P 500. Like no one really cares about the other 493. These are the ones that drive it. Maybe a few, right, in the semiconductor space and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, these are the stocks that keep the market propped up. So that's what everybody focuses the most on. Today's markets, surprisingly, all green across the board. Right? Not that it matters, right? With stock options, you can make money going up or going down, but I feel like there hasn't been a consensus across the world in a long time. Japan is closed, so next them. But Hong Kong up 0.6%, China up 1.2%, India flat, London up 0.5, Paris up 0.8, Frankfurt up 1%, Dow up 0.3, S&P up 0.3, Nasdaq up 0.2, crude oil up 1.1%, gold up 0.8%, Bitcoin up 0.6% to $64,000. What else is happening? We'll wrap it up here with our rapid fire stock news rundown. Non-farm payrolls is worse than expected news. Good news. Paramount in formal negotiations with Apollo and Sony. Tesla sets sights on Europe in latest self-driving push. Mystic Dan, Kentucky Derby sets new wager record. Yeah, lots of people betting out here. FanDuel, DraftKings, it's a problem. FTC's attack on high-profile executive rattles U.S. oil industry. BTIG sees murky road ahead for cannabis reclassification. Trump Media, ticker DJT, accounting firm charged with massive fraud. Major airlines agree on $8.5 billion Chicago O'Hare Airport upgrade. ABC News, president quits as Disney leadership reviews network. And then are AI stocks in a bubble? Here's what Citadel's Ken Griffin thinks. So speaking of AI stocks, make sure you're locked in with us on the next wave of those on June 19th as we kick off our Kaizen event, getting 1% better boiled down into 3 days of absolute value packed. I don't even know what the word should be. Value packed, honestly, tomfoolery, because it's gonna be fun, right? It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be informative. It's gonna be light, but it's also going to be chock full of information, just like these sessions are, right? I try and make it simple, try to make it approachable, but make sure that we're walking away with actionable content so that we can move with intent, right? In order to accomplish the extent of what we're looking to get done in our lives. So I guess we'll leave on that, Bar. That was a nice, fun way to kick off Monday's first session. Everybody have a great rest of your day, and I'll see you back here tomorrow morning, right here, right? I'm betterdaily.com. If you're not, hop over there. Other than that, have a great rest of the day. Peace.